I'm coming from Evangelical Presbyterian Development and Relief Agency in the north. As you are aware, EP Church, as a church, also have its social department, and in the social department we have been looking at their social life, that is their food needs, their health needs, and also education needs. EPDRA, as it is now called, was established by the church in the north in the late 70s, and the idea was, after assessing the needs of people in Sabuba, Chireponi, and Yendi area, which is found in the upper northern presbytery of the EP Church, decided to do a needs assessment of the people and also of the land. And they came up with some agricultural interventions. You will realize that over the years, farmers have been faced with poor yields of crops. They also have poor performances of their livestock, and also this leading to food insecurity. As a result of that, the church established the agricultural stations so that they will be able to, through their interventions, help address some of these needs of the people in the catchment area. The stations initially started with agricultural and related projects, and they were involved in poverty reduction, microeconomic growth, and social progress. It also started with farm input supply through the Christian Aid Mission, through the Christian Council of Ghana, with the support from Christian Aid and Bread for the World. The idea initially was to supply these farm inputs free to our clients, that is the farmers. These interventions were given out free. But over the years and after a lot of evaluation processes, it came out that we need to diversify, we need to change our ways of doing things. Now, EPDRA and its partners are working on environmental protection, that is tree planting and fire management, soil fertility management, crop production, livestock improvement, microcredit for all farm income generation, and what we call market access projects. The EPDRA stations, again, in 2005, 2004, 2005, co-implemented a project we called crop livestock integration in collaboration with Ministry of Food and Agriculture. At the moment, the stations are implementing what we call farmer projects supported by ECO in the Netherlands. The stations, I'll come back to that shortly. The station also undertook a project on a sustainable poverty reduction in northern Ghana, which was also in the Sabuba, Yendi, and Chireponi districts. As I indicated earlier, we have these 3 stations in the north, and they have a manager each and also field staff working on the projects. Currently, the stations deliver services to over 124 communities, 298 farmer groups, and reaching out to over 5,820 farmers directly and over 18,000 indirect beneficiaries. Out of the number of farmer-based organizations, 92 of them are registered with the Department of Cooperatives. Needs of the people, and also train some farmer volunteer squads to deal with the indiscriminate bushfires in the area. I have a small table here to show you some figures that we have currently. In Yendi Station, They have about 16 acres under woodlots, and they have also trained over 200 fire volunteers. In Saboba area, they have over 10 acres of woodlots under cultivation and over 150 fire volunteers. In Chireponi area, they have over 29 acres of woodlots and about 75 fire volunteers. Let me say that these figures are stagnated a bit because of the perennial bushfires that we encounter every year. These are the problems affecting our activities in the area. We would have been talking about larger figures by now. I mentioned earlier that we operate in 3 districts currently, because Chireponi now is also a district, Yendi municipality, and also Saboba district. As you could see, the figures on the board shows us our operational communities and also our direct beneficiaries, as I mentioned earlier. Currently, Chireponi is operating about 45 communities, and we are working directly with about 1,018 male farmers, 939 female farmers, making a total of 1,957. That gave them a total of 92 farmer-based organizations that they are working with. In Yendi, they are operating in 29 communities. They are working with 943 male farmers, 558 female farmers, adding up to 1,501 direct beneficiaries, and they are into 79 farmer-based organizations. In Saboba, as you could see, 50 communities, 1,395 males, 967 females, totaling 2,362, and they have 137 farmer-based organizations. As you could see right now, the total direct beneficiaries and also the total number of farmer-based organizations. I just want to spend a little time to talk about the environment and climate change as it pertains in our area. Land degradation in the northern region, as we are all aware, is caused by a number of driving factors of significant concern to the livelihoods of those who live in the regions, include unsustainable agricultural practices, overgrazing by livestock, population growth, uncontrolled bushfires, and over-harvesting of fuel wood. These processes, combined with the natural harsh climate of the region, have resulted in extensive and soil erosion and loss of fertile land for cultivation. In the light of the above analysis, EPDRA North has held a lot of sensitization and awareness creation workshops to integrate both climate change mitigation and adaptation measures at the project planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation stages. Mitigation and adaptation strategies will be based on current livelihood coping mechanisms within the targeted communities. Coping strategies. 1. The introduction of early maturing varieties of crops at the start of the farming season. An interaction with the farmers, they will tell you that they have realized that the seasons are changing. They can no longer rely on what they know. Formally, you could predict that between the 15th of June and 15th of July, you must start planting. But over the few years, they have observed that if you want to go by the earlier predictions and education that they used to get from Matthew, they will fail because they have realized that the seasons have changed. So on their own, they have decided to even go back to some of their early maturing crops so as to be able to beat the season, because currently the northern Ghana season seriously. We have about 5 months of rainy season. So the farmers on their own have adopted this as a coping strategy. Those of them that are also closer to river banks have also realized that the need for them to take advantage of the early rains, plant around the riverbeds and harvest before the floods come up. And this to some of them has worked. And for us, we have some of our communities lined up around the river Uti, and the farmers who are there are taking advantage of that. Again, another coping strategy that they have adopted is also planting of different crops on the same piece of land as an insurance against crop failure. That is a strategy they've also adopted. As agriculturists, we used to tell them they should plant, for instance, the soya beans, a sole crop. But you go in there and you realize that they have planted other maize or other crops in there. When you talk with them why they don't want to do sole crop, they say chances are that this one will fail. So they are taking advantage of the land and want to put in other few crops so as to mitigate the effects of the changing weather pattern and climate variabilities that they have observed on their own. As a program, we have also adapted some mitigation processes to assist them to overcome some of these things. One of them, as I've already mentioned, is adoption of agroforestry practices by growing trees on some degraded land and also on some of the crops, some of the lands that they are farming on. That is one measure we've been adopting and it appears to be working for them. Another one is adopt farming methods such as sustainable agriculture that ensure that the land stays fertile for several years to avoid shifting from one place to another and also causing more damage to the land. What we mean by sustainable agriculture is that you hardly find a farmer in the north who does not keep animals. They are integrating the animal farming into the crop farming to the extent that some of the droppings of the animals are sent back to the land to keep the land fertile, since the cost of fertilizer is quite expensive to majority of our farmers. That is a strategy that we have adapted with them and it's working. Another mitigation measure is also education and sensitization of indiscriminate bush burning. As I indicated earlier, under the Agenda 21 project, we did a lot of sensitization and training workshops in the communities to vet or to stop the indiscriminate bush burning. But those of us who are aware of what happens in the Savannah region, you will realize that bush burning is part of us. People don't see why after harvesting you should not burn the place so that the place will look nice. If you talk to some of them, they say, oh, you want the field to be looking nice. And sometimes you see some small boys and girls looking for those small rats and mice. They set fire to catch those animals. So as part of our mitigation measures, we adopted a training of fire volunteers who live among the communities where these things happen. We normally select the people from the various communities, bring them together and engage the services of Ghana National Fire Service to give them training to be able to stop some of the wildfires that come from far away, because sometimes the fires travel several miles and several kilometers and you are unable to trace the source of it. So the training that we give the farmers is to assist this squad of volunteers, is to assist them to put off some of the fire that comes to destroy their farms. Again, with the collaboration of the research stations, they have produced some seeds that are drought tolerant, and we encourage the farmers to also plant some of the drought tolerant crops, such that if in the middle of the season you have 2 weeks, 3 weeks drought, some of the crops, and if you happen to find some of these seeds, the crops will be able to withstand the drought until the rains come. Another thing that we've attempted to do is farm level adaptation, such as shifting planting dates and modifying the amount and timing of fertilizer applications. As I indicated earlier, if we want to keep to what is in literature today, we will be failing our farmers, because sometimes those dates do not work. So we have observed, together with MOFA and some of the experienced farmers, and then together we put our heads together and are able to predict or tell them sometimes when to sow their seeds, so that they will be able to meet the rainfall, so that they will not lose completely. Before I conclude, let me say that I have made this presentation hurriedly, and also with our pictures. Mr. Chasagoklu will come and continue the presentation, and he will have the pictures or some pictures to show us, which has to do with some of the activities in the north. I want to conclude by saying that the involvement of community and traditional leaders can contribute to developing ideas on how best to use land in order to reduce the damage to the environment. Based on the adaptive measures outlined, climate change considerations are mainstream throughout activities of EPDRA. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
It seems there are more EP church people here.